Okay, we are back on the channel to talk about One Friday Fights 58, and as I mentioned previously, I would be joined by a guest. As I said just before we started recording, I've been waiting for a card that felt like something I should get Tim on for. So my guest for this episode, Mr. Tim Wheaton, who I'm sure a lot of people will be familiar with anyway through Beyond Kickboxing, through Calf Kick Sports, all of the stuff that you do. Tim, how are you doing? And is there anything I missed out when talking about the stuff that you currently do?
And no, thank you so much for the nice intro. I'm flattered to be here, man. Like, it's great. Thank you for the intro, Kyle. I've watched the show a bunch of times. Like, I've shouted you out on air, and I hugely appreciate you inviting me. You know, I got anytime you want me on the show, I'm gonna drop in. But yeah, you missed a bunch of stuff. I do so many things where like I have to Google myself sometimes to be like, where else do I work? What else do I do? And I go on LinkedIn. But yeah, don't use LinkedIn to organize your like MMA stuff. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing, but yeah, mainly Calf Kick Sports and Beyond Kick, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same in that if people want a full list, I'm like, oh god, where do we begin with this? You know, so
I know.
but just cut it down to a short list and it keeps things simple. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat.
But yeah,
So
Kyle, you're doing absolutely awesome stuff. I love to see this kind of stuff. And you like the Glory Grand Prix, the heavyweight Grand Prix. How did you feel about it? I know that you did a full show on it, but like walking away from it, you're gonna watch more kickboxing, more glory, or was it just like, yeah, that's what I expected?
yeah, no, I enjoyed it a lot. From when Glory used to be on Fight Pass, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. So when it was on Fight Pass, I would catch it every now and then. Just if I saw that it was on, I was like, oh, perfect, I'll fire that up. But striking, watching striking, like following it actively instead of just tuning into the odd big fight is pretty much only a thing that's happened since I've been covering One, which is about 2 years now. So
Yeah.
I came to One purely from an MMA base, but having seen obviously the big names, I'd seen them fight all before, but never really following it and stuff like that. So I feel like I've been so One orientated that it was good to watch Glory because I didn't even know that it wasn't on Fight Pass anymore.
Yeah.
So when I saw your video and I was like, oh, I definitely need to tune into this. I was like, where is it? I mean,
No,
luckily,
yeah.
it was super easy to find anyway. So that was kind of why I wanted to make the video, to be like, people might have missed this because it was that crazy week where there was a huge event like every day. So I think maybe people might have missed it. Like, I think, on a regular week, people would have probably seen some of the clips and stuff like that, and people would have checked it out. But it was a really, really good event. I definitely want to, keep up with Glory from now on, because I mean, like I said, I kind of knew what to expect anyway, so it wasn't like a first impressions per se. But I mean, who doesn't love a one night Grand Prix? And it delivered. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
And
I
I
had a great
felt
time.
like your breakdown was very good on it as well. It was very accurate. Like you knew everything going on, and it was an accurate breakdown. But talking of getting into striking sports through One, like I owe my entire career to One Championship, and I openly talk about it. And like the first people to really take risks on me and give me interviews, the first people to really actually pay me big boy money was through One Championship in some way. The first videos that went viral, all of them were through One Championship. And so as much as I do try to cover other stuff, like I love RWS and I love Glory and I love all these other things, really like so much of this is One Championship focus. And even on the marketing side, like talking about Muay Thai and kickboxing, really at the end of the day, so much of it is just One, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat, to be honest. I mean, like I'd covered MMA for a few different places, but where it became like a real, like, okay, now this is a full-time job now, was covering One. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat as you. And then, like I said, trying to pick up some more things here and there, but I'm sure you go through the same thing with how much striking that you cover, but also trying to keep up with MMA. It's
Yeah.
it's not easy. So I struggle with that a little bit, but I'll see stuff on Twitter and be like, oh, I need to check that out at some point, and then it just doesn't happen because there's another thing to check out, and then another thing. It's tough.
And there's so much good MMA that they're always like serving up, because when the UFC like right now is kind of dry, but KSW is right there, Octagon's right there, Cage Warriors is right there, and they're doing awesome things. And then you're looking at One and RWS and Rise and K1, and you're like, holy shit, wait a sec, where am I supposed to be right now? Right, I'm watching so much stuff.
Exactly. Like I'm going to London this weekend to cover Cage Warriors, and it's like
Yeah.
trying to focus on anything else that's happening this week whilst trying to prepare for that is like, I kind of have to put everything else on the back burner. It is tough.
I know.
um, well, you mentioned briefly about one championship, and both of us kind of owing a little bit to one championship there, but also the the ground that they've laid for Muay Thai and kickboxing, I think is pretty incredible in recent years. I definitely think that they're helping to get some more what's the word? Some just more eyes on it in general, right?
Mhm.
Um but that's kind of where I wanted to start before we actually dive into the fights that are on this card, because I'm not sure if you saw this, but it's going to be on pay per view this card, which of course,
Yeah.
One Friday Fights 46 in December was also on pay per view. I believe these kind of big quarterly events that are doing on the Friday Fight series, they're going to be on pay per view from now on.
Mhm.
But like I said, as someone who you watch a lot more striking than I do, and so I find it difficult to weigh up the value, right? Because that Glory event, for example, was a one night tournament, and I paid about £12 to watch
Yeah.
the replay. And this pay per view will work out, I would imagine, around 30, I believe, was how much the December card was. Personally, I thought the December card was better than this card. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on it, because before we get into the fights, and the fights are really good. I don't mean to downplay this card. I am really excited for this event, but in terms of the justification of the pay per view, in terms of the value, in terms of how many eyes you think are going to see this, who probably would enjoy it if it was a lot easier to watch. Like, what's your thoughts on that as someone that watches a lot more striking than myself?
So, yeah, no, I know what you're asking here. So the thing is that what one championship is essentially doing is very much niche sports. And they're just trying to carve off a small percentage of the combat sports market who watch MMA, but would also be interested in exclusive striking sports, which is a good percentage of them, really. But they need to be exposed to this. They need to see what's going on here. And I'll tell you a story about when I was covering the UFC in London. I forget which event, but one of them, I was at the UFC in London. I started talking to one of the guys at the weigh-ins, and he was just a fan. And I was talking about like, yeah, I really like, I'm covering the UFC here today, but really like my writing and my videos, it's all about one championship. And he's like, oh yeah, I've seen one championship on TikTok. I've seen the Instagram reels. Like it's hard to, once you're on the one championship marketing, it's hard to get off. And I feel like that's where one's strength really is having so much exposure to this very impressive product that they have. The product is awesome with one championship. And it's a matter of getting eyes on it. And that's through Instagram Reels, through TikTok, through whatever on YouTube, because you need to have people seeing it. And I think putting it behind a pay per view paywall is a mistake, because why we're into it is because it was accessible. Like you were talking about with Glory or just a second ago, of like, I thought I had access to it. Turns out I had to look up how. Or it turns out like this thing over here is on DAZN, or this thing over here is actually on this thing, or it's pay per view. One championship's best sell was, you like this? Great. This Friday we got a fight. It's on YouTube. It's for free. Tune in. Like that's it. And that was the sell. So I do think that putting on pay-per-view is a mistake. But what's your analysis on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe you could. I think that you can do the pay per view thing, but I think charging that much for it is eliminating a lot of the people that would be willing. Like, you're already putting on pay per view, you're already going to eliminate part of the audience, because they're
Yep.
just going to go, I'm not going to pay for it when I usually get these fights for free. Which,
Yep.
I understand, but I think that for people that are really dedicated, they will pay the money if they think the card is good enough. And I think that this card is very good, but I just don't know. I think it's a tough one to pitch to people, unless they are diehard striking fans, and in that case, they will probably pay whatever you want to charge for it if they want to see it that badly. But
Or
that
like having some subscription service through their like one FC view website, watch website of like, I know you don't want to pay 40 for this. What if you paid $10 a month and just got everything? I don't know.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day in terms of pro wrestling, right? Because the
Yeah.
WWE don't charge for pay per views; you just pay a subscription, and
Yeah.
then start of next year it'll all be on Netflix. Like
Mhm.
the pay per view model. I understand why one championship would do it, but I do agree with you in that it would be great to just have everything in one place for one championship, a streaming app.
Yeah.
Get everything under a subscription, and then even if they did a DAZN approach where it's like you pay a subscription and then maybe you pay a little bit extra for these bigger cards, if you're a diehard fan and you want to see everything live and not added to the subscription service a week after or something like that, maybe charge a little bit extra for these cards where they're trying to make them feel, these big quarterly, events. I get that. But yeah, the flat out pay-per-view is a big barrier to entry, I think.
And
Which is,
especially like you said, of like, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
it's a shame because, like you said, the product is so good, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
people like Friday fights, which of course this is part of. I think has been great for that because it's like, even if you don't know who's fighting, you don't even know necessarily what the card is looking like. Every Friday it's there on YouTube. You're going to get some great knockouts. You're going to get some crazy fights, and it's perfect. It does what it's supposed to do. And then when you chuck a price on that, I think, especially for people who maybe don't follow striking super closely, that's a lot of money to part with.
Oh, I know. And especially like you said, you alluded to it, and I sent it to you there in the comments as well. But the pay-per-view cards are maybe not as strong as they consistently kind of should be in a way. And I love Superbond. Superbond's like my guy. Like my gamer tag is Superbond. Like that's not even a joke.
Right.
But like the first one that they did was 1X. And like look at how good 1X was for like, I think it was 30 quid, like you were saying. Demetrius Johnson, Rod Tang, Adriano Moraes, Yuya Wakamatsu, Yoshihiro Akiyama, Shinya Aoki, sure, okay. Superbond, Murat Grigorian, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Nong-O was defending his title. Hiroki Akimoto was defending his title. Ham Seohee was on it. Shingiz Alazov and the end of the tournament. Like, and that's like what, half of the fights I mentioned? Like, you know what I mean? This is such a good card.
Yeah, and it lasted for like, I don't even remember how many hours it went on, but it was pretty much an all-day event. So
I know. I know. My wife was on the couch being like, Tim, can we hang out? And I was like, no, it's still on. I'm still watching fights. It hasn't ended.
Yeah, that was it was a really fun, event, and there were so many good fights. But yeah, that was a tough one to get through. Like, I love watching fights, but that's a lot of fights in a row, So we should actually we'll get into the actual fights, because I know that I don't want to just be down on this card because of the pay-per-view, because if you are going to watch it, then you're going to get some great fights.
It's great. It's really good. Yeah.
And we're kicking things off with your main man, Superbon. Like you said, rematch with Murat Grigorian, their third fight now, second in one championship. Both of their previous fights are on YouTube in full. So check those out before this card, because I feel like watching those two fights and kind of getting the story of this trilogy makes this fight way better than it maybe looks on paper, I think, because we'll get into the scenario that is kind of hanging over this fight, I think. But yeah, I went back and rewatched those two fights in preparation for this, and I can't wait for this one now.
I'm excited for it as well. Superbond is just absolutely awesome. He's like, he's got like a quiver full of kicks, of like, no matter what kick he has, he knows the exact distance, the exact power, the exact timing, whether it's any type of front kick or teep kick or any type of roundhouse kick to the body, legs, or head. He's like a kicking machine, right?
Yeah, I mean, to use a comics reference, he's like Green Arrow in that he's always got an arrow for every occasion, right? You find out a way to deal with that one, he's got another one loaded, ready to go, and then he'll try you with this one. And like, yeah, Superbon is one of my favorite fighters to watch. I think that anyone who watches striking will probably say that, though, right? Like, it was really hard not to be a huge fan of Superbon. And then the thing, like I said, with watching the other two fights that makes this trilogy so exciting is that Grigorian has beaten him before. And I think that if we hadn't have had the first fight where Grigorian beat him, maybe I wouldn't be as interested, because the second one kind of felt like, I think, the way that a lot of people thought it would go, in that Superbon, just a little bit too good, and too good at, like, if you're going to be Superbon, everyone knows how you're going to try and do it. And Grigorian was able to do it, and that's what makes this so exciting. Is we've seen Superbon counter that style, and we've also seen him lose to that style in the past. And so, the trilogy becomes so much more exciting because we've seen it work both ways now. Like, I feel like we've seen the way that this fight plays out twice, and so now we need to see it one more time to see who wins it the majority of times, right?
Yeah, because the first two fights were the both extremes, right? One guy dominates one fight, and then the other guy dominates the other fight, and there really wasn't any middle ground in either of those fights. But at the time, like, to put it into context of when Superbon had defeated Murat Grigorian the first time, is that there was no recency bias, but with the quality of Superbon's wins, he was really very much considered one of the all-time greats in kickboxing history. His wins over Sidichai, Giorgio Petrosian, and then he beat Murat at the highest point of Murat Grigorian's career, right? He had avenged his losses to Sidichai. He had already beat Superbon once. He was the Glory lightweight champion and didn't lose the title. He vacated it to compete in one, and then went undefeated, and then fought Superbon. So that was the highest point of his career. And at that time, Superbon beat him in a kickboxing masterclass. It wasn't a close fight in any way. And in every way, it was just Superbon flexing what his game is. It was like a display fight for Superbon and what he is. So to beat Marat that dominantly is very impressive. Now, Marat Grigorian is on the other side of how he kickboxes, is like he's very um, systematic based. He's very aggressive. He's forward punching, but he wades in, he covers up. He's trying to get openings by pushing his opponents back against the fence. And he's very systematic with it, but he's trying to land a volley of different punches and a volley of different combinations. And he's very good at it. And you saw that in the first fight, he just closed the distance, punched him out, and it's done. And that's what he's trying to do in every single fight. And he's very good at that. The problem is, I'm I I don't know. What's your prediction? What do you see? What do you see in this fight? Tell me a little bit more about what you're seeing here before we get to the ultimate predictions, right?
Yeah, I think that of course you have the fact that the last time we saw these guys was when Superbon put on that masterclass.
Yeah.
And I thought Marat Grigorian, like you said, that kind of systematic approach that he has, I thought it looked very good against Sitchai, despite the fact he got caught a fair bit in that fight. But you know, I can see Superbon doing maybe not to the same degree of performance that he did at 1x, but I can see a similar fight. I'm not sure. We're going to talk about Chingiz Alazov in a minute. I'm not sure Grigorian can put it on Superbon the same way that Alazov did in that fight, in Superbon's last loss in kickboxing. I'm not sure Marat can do that again at this stage. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it will be more competitive than the one at 1x, but I do see a similar kind of performance from Superbon, just maybe not as masterclass as it was that last time.
No, I'm in the same boat as you. Of like, I did see very little opportunity for Marat to do well, and it is just the style base in terms of if he makes adjustments. So his style is trying to close the distance to land punches up close, and because of that, he's going to walk into 1,000 kicks or 1,000 knees to the inside. And okay, so what if he adjusts and tries the clinch? Well, Superbon's mainly a Muay Thai fighter. He started in Muay Thai. You're not going to out clinch him. Okay, what if Marat hangs out a distance? Okay, perfect. That's exactly what Superbon wants. Like, there's so few opportunities for Marat to do well. I did see him training at Fairtex Gym in Bangkok, and I don't know if like just because you trained at a Muay Thai gym, you're not going to learn all the tricks of the trade overnight kind of thing. We can only measure what we've seen him do in fights. Can he do what Chingiz Alazov did to Superbon? Thing is, Chingiz is just a different beast altogether, isn't he?
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk a little bit about Chingiz Alazov for a second, because as I said, there's kind of something hanging over this fight, I think. Does the kind of uncertainty around Alazov make this fight less exciting to you? Because I at first I kind of thought it did, and now, would I want to see either of these guys jump straight in with Alazov anyway, based off the fact he's beaten them in his last two fights? No. So I would have liked to have seen this fight first anyway. And then maybe, if one of them looks impressive, puts on a good performance, then maybe you can do an Alazov rematch. But, it is a little bit odd because the Alazov stuff came out about him wanting to leave One Championship, and then I think like the next week was when we got this fight announced, right? So
yeah, no, it's an odd thing, and he's not posturing for more money. So Chingiz Alazov comes from a very wealthy background, and like he does kickboxing essentially for fun. So like he doesn't care about that sort of stuff. He did want to fight in Russia and Belarus, probably first the same people who are promoting like Artem Vakitov and these types of people. Like he's just making good money with some people in the region and fighting for fun kind of thing. But I mean, he is under contract with One Championship. And from my understanding, so I'm trying to think of how much I can reveal. Essentially, he was in conversation with Beyond Kickboxing. And he was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And I think he knew that he was dropping a story on purpose. But Chingiz does talk to Beyond Kick all the time. But and then after Beyond dropped the story, he was like, okay, thank you. One is now talking to me. So essentially, maybe One wasn't speaking to him a bunch about getting a fight set up or renegotiating his contract. And he was trying to renegotiate the contract. And he was just putting things out there like, yeah, I'll go to K1. Yeah, I'll go to Glory. And then once he's now talking to One, he actually does want to stay in One. But I do expect him to fight this year. I think he's more than happy to fight. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It didn't come across to me that he was downing tools. It came across more like a little bit of frustration, a little bit of you're gonna have to give me something good because I don't need to do this. Or he spoke about wanting to fight, in front of some home audiences and things
Yeah,
like that. So I think it was more a bit, yeah, just like putting his bargaining chips on the table to say, hey, like, I have nothing to lose. I can walk away and never fight again, and I'm good. So if you want me to fight, then let's make something happen, right? So
100%.
I think we'll see Alazov again, and I think that makes this more exciting. That if Superbomb puts on a masterclass, if Gregorian's able to get to him, then we could see that rematch, like you said. Hopefully this year. I would be disappointed if we don't see Alazov this year for sure. So I hope
Oh,
that
I agree
happens.
with that. Oh yeah, and that was
Um,
one of my top three. You said prepare 3 fights that you most want to see in one championship. One of them was Shingiz Alazov versus Superbond too.
oh yeah, that is yeah.
I might be
That's
sad.
we'll we'll talk about that a little bit later if we get the time. Co-main event, strawweight champions going up against each other. Jonathan DeBella defending the strawweight kickboxing world championship against Prajan Chai. I love this fight. I think this is so good. Based off the form of Prajan Chai as of late, getting that rematch in with Laziri after like hunting it down, and just destroying Laziri in that opening round to win back the belt after that strange performance against Laziri the first time around. And I think I'm a little bit disappointed that we haven't seen Jonathan DeBella as much. I know that of course, they have to fly him out and things like that, but I've been so impressed by Jonathan DeBella in one championship. Of course, especially that debut against Zhang Peimian. So I'm really excited to see JDB back, and I think that this is by far his toughest test to date in one championship. But I think we have a lot more to see from him as well. So I'm quite split on this one, to be honest. But I'm aware that I also probably rate JDB a little bit higher than a lot of people. I think most people would be leaning more towards Prajan Chai, whereas I'm quite on the fence with this one. How are you feeling about it?
Man, Jonathan DeBell is my guy. Like Canadian Italian, we're both Canadian Italian. Like I've been out to Montreal where he's trained and grew up and stuff like that. And like I have his T-shirts here and stuff like that. Like he's sending me out the coffee. His father, like his family, I speak to all the time, and that's why I'm willing to say that this is by far the toughest fight of his career. In that, like, if I wasn't so close to him, I might just say like, yeah, Project Chai blows him out of the water, kind of thing. But that really forces me to take a closer look at this fight because this is one of those pillar fights where Jonathan DeBella needs to win this for his entire legacy. This is one of the core fights of his entire fight career where he has to win this fight. It doesn't matter how close it is. But he has to get a W on this fight for his legacy to be secure. Because the knock against him is that he has beaten, despite being the champion and showing clear pound for pound talent based on the names that he's beaten, they were impressive wins with impressive skills, but based on the names, that didn't put him over the top for pound ranking. Whereas a win over Progenchai, considering how good he is, like you said, he was on a run. He's clearly made adjustments and he's so fast and so good. That puts him in the conversation of being one of the pound for pound guys right now. And yeah, this is the toughest fight of his career by far because Prajanchai is so good. He's so fast. He's an expert in every area of the striking sport. And honestly, I think he looks better in kickboxing than he does in Muay Thai. This guy is just looking incredible right now. And yeah, just beat the hell out of Joseph Lasiri. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, great. Like Joseph Lasiri as well. But yeah, tell me your thoughts. What do you think?
My next, question was going to be to you about Prajanchai in kickboxing. I'd heard JDB talk a little bit about this and say that he wasn't gonna. Obviously, he's not going to approach the fight thinking that Prajanchai is going to be any worse than he has been in Muay Thai, but also that he was expecting a little bit, like you said, he was expecting him to just carry on at his current level and not see any differences from competing in kickboxing this time out. So I'm interested to know what you think about Prajanchai in kickboxing and why you think he's potentially better in kickboxing.
Well, it's just the performance that I've seen. Now he's a huge deal in Muay Thai, like his incredible wins, guys like Sam A, Compet, and people like this. Like he is a very important legacy fighter, and that's why he was a pound for pound great in Muay Thai. But he had the one fight against Akram Hamidi, and just looked like they were competing in two different leagues. Like it wasn't particularly close. The right hand was continuously landing. He looked like lightning in there, but it's removing the clinch and that allows his game to really flourish. I know that sounds stupid because he grew up in Muay Thai, but without that factor, he just hucks that right hand like it's nothing, and he's able to land it every single time. So for me, I think he's actually a little bit more effective in kickboxing than he is in Muay Thai. And look, and people are going to disagree. Fantastic. You're right to do so. I'm not saying I'm right about everything, but I think it's a talking point.
Yeah, absolutely, because that is the big question. Obviously, the big question for DeBella's corner is, how he does against the toughest test of his career, and the big question for Prajanchai is how he does against the strawweight kickboxing world champion. And I think that the like you said, because of how good Prajanchai is, I think the more interesting part of this fight is whether JDB can prove, like you said, that he isn't just great at putting on these performances against opponents that maybe you don't rank as the top guys. So if he can do it against Prajanchai, there is no debate anymore, right? That is done. He can do it against the best guys in the world if he can do it against Prajanchai.
Oh yeah, and like the thing is, like, I'm just trying. The reason that he's such a big deal is like he's one of the people who doesn't have the name like Rod Tang, but has better accreditation than Rod Tang. Like he's like a 4-time stadium champion or more, or something like that. He's got almost 350 career victories, and that's why when Joseph Lasiri beat him, we were all like, "What the fuck? What the hell was that?"
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. I can't remember seeing anything like it as well in maybe combat sports period, where everyone was like, okay, we need to see the rematch. And until he got the rematch, Prajanchai just went on a tear. Like it was like if anything, it made the first fight with Laziri even more confusing, right? Because you're like,
Yeah,
oh my god, maybe people have worked out Prajanchai after all this time, and then
yeah.
he just dismantles everybody. And then, of course, the Laziri rematch, everyone's like, is Laziri just got his number? No.
No,
We found
no, it
that
was
out quick.
just no, and I feel bad because I interviewed Lasiri and I didn't really give him a ton of like. I was like 15 minutes in and out, and then he beat Prajanchai, and I was like, "Damn it, get me Joseph Lasiri one more time." I didn't give him the time of day. I wasn't nice enough to him. But okay, but ahead of this fight, I talked to Jonathan DeBella again. I'm running out of questions to ask him. I interview him so much, but in his last fight, he was getting leg kicked a lot by Daniel Williams, and Daniel Williams is not. He's a national Muay Thai, national kickboxing champion in Australia, but he's not like a world champion anywhere. But Joseph DeBella essentially did not defend any leg kicks. He just took the leg kicks and continued marching forward to land punches. And that was one of the questions I had for him with preparing for Prajanchai. Because if you do that against Prajanchai, you're going to lose. And he said, tuned in Friday. That's all he said.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
So either they know, or that was the first time I've told them.
I guess, yeah, well, I guess we will find out.
Yeah.
The other big fight that was announced for this card, when the card was, properly announced, was a little bit of a strange one because we thought we were getting the return of Nong-O against Vladimir Kuzmin in Qatar, and he got rescheduled for this fight against Kulabdam, which I can understand why they would want him on this card. I think he's probably better served being here than being in Qatar, although I wanted to see the Kuzmin fight. I was excited for that one. And just as a I don't want this to make it sound like it's tough when you get fighters that have the adoration of absolutely everybody, and they've had a couple of tough losses. Because I'm not trying to sound like we should cover Nong-O in bubble wrap, but I'm also like putting him in there, putting it because he's a legend for a reason. But putting him in with Kulabdam, given his recent run, is like. This fight worries me a little bit, to be honest. I don't know how you're feeling about this one, but when I saw the Kuzmin matchup, I was like, okay, we'll see if Nong-O can still hang at the top guys in this division. And then with Kulabdam, it's like, when you get those matchups in the UFC where you go, uh-oh, a star's gonna happen here. Like, it's gonna be one of those moments that's in a highlight reel for a long time.
I know. So let's talk about the 3 chapters of Nong-O's careers. Nong-O was a Muay Fimu fighter, very good all-arounder, and a kind of a decision machine. And then he kind of got old, picked up some Muay Thai titles. But then when he entered one championship, he started training at I forget the gym, doesn't matter. Evolve. And for the first time, he started strength training. And in Muay Thai culture, they don't do strength training at all. They only do cardio and like bag work and the other stuff and sparring, of course, but they don't do strength training. So he started doing strength training, and then that's when he got on this knockout win streak. He got like 7 knockout wins in a row or something insane like that, and he's never strength trained in his entire career. But then, like overnight, he became an old man. He's not at Evolve MMA. He's not strength training anymore. He is just relying on muscle memory for like a 38-year-old Muay Thai fighter, which, like, oh my god. And so he got knocked out a couple of times. Nico Carrillo beat the hell out of him. Jonathan Haggerty beat the hell out of him. Don't love to see it, but he was doing fairly well against Nico Carrillo. Kulabdam kind of follows a different trajectory in that he was a very good Muay Thai fighter, and there's chapters to his career as well. Very good Muay Thai fighter, stadium champion and such like that. He was very much a Muay mat style puncher. He liked mixing body and head punches. He very good knockouts, very good left hand, and he was always moving backwards to try to get people funneled, almost like Lyoto Machida style of like trying to funnel you into my punching range. But when he started getting losses in one, he changed to One Championships Muay Thai entertainment style. So we went from traditional Muay Thai stadium style to entertainment Muay Thai style. And that's what you saw against Tyson Harrison, where he's just like running at him. And he just nonstop. That's what you saw against Julio Lobo, where he's just running straight at him. Honestly, it's sad to say, but I do think Kulabdam is a little bit over the hill, which is sad to say for a 25-year-old fighter, but I do think he's out of his prime at this point. But Nong-O is so far out of his prime. Mate, I don't know, man. I feel bad, but yeah, I don't know, man. I'm gonna feel bad whoever wins on this one, whoever loses, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's a tough one. Like you said, I thought Nong-O looked pretty good against Nico Carrillo until he got
did.
stopped. Which,
Yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You're fighting Nico Carrillo. There's a very good chance that you might start well and it won't end well, right? Like, it's part of it. I thought, up until he got, I know that it was only one round, but I thought he looked good against Haggerty until that fight ended as well. But
Yeah.
I've also been in this scenario with, again, to compare it to, the UFC fighters that you love who start to go on a slide. You can make excuses for a lot of their losses and say they were winning until they weren't. That happens. So whether that streak will end with this fight, I'm not so sure. And like you said, I feel like it's going to be a strange moment no matter what happens. I think if Kulabdam stops Nong-O, then he's gonna that highlight is gonna get played a lot, and we'll see what's next for him. If Nong-O gets a finish, then that is worrying for Kulabdam, but
Yes.
also potentially, I'm not sure how long Nong-O wants to carry on doing this, but potentially kind of a final career highlight to at least give people, that satisfaction of getting to watch him do his thing one more time and be on the winning end, because he did look good in those other performances. But like I said, that tends to happen quite a lot in combat sports.
Yeah, no, like you said, I don't know how to pick this fight, but either way, I don't think it bodes well for either guy. It's like two guys who are a little bit over the hill fighting each other. Okay, maybe hang it up, guys. I'm sorry.
There are a couple other names on this card that are worth mentioning, although like I think the fights have been announced but not added to the card. But
yeah, what do you got there? Let me Google it. Where are you looking? Tapology or Wikipedia?
I don't actually know if these fights are on either.
Okay, what do you got? What do you got?
I tried to find this yesterday. I believe I saw someone had posted that it came up on the Italian Wikipedia page for this card, for this card. But I know that Zhang Peimian is back on this card. I know that Sexan is back on this card. I heard rumblings, but nothing confirmed of Liam Harrison being on this card. But I think that would be a little bit later, but that is what I had heard. So there are some other fights on this card. I just wanted to highlight that these three fights are the fights that have sold the card, right? These are the ones that were announced ages ago, but there are some other good names on this card. I know Mang Tai is on this card, and
that one I saw
people as well. But yeah,
but I hope if all those names that you mentioned are on the card, I'm willing to shell out my pay-per-view money a little bit more for this card, right?
Yeah, that it is, I think, a better card because, like I said, with these Friday fights cards, they tend to come out pretty late and stuff. It's hard to kind of weigh it up, but there are some very, very good names on this card for me. I still don't think it's maybe as good as the December card that we got, just because that had 3 title fights, and I thought that those 3 title fights were maybe. I mean, the 2 title fights we have on this card, I think, are fantastic. So I'm not saying that those were bad and the others were good. They're both, had great title fights. I just thought those ones were maybe a little bit stronger. Of course, you had Superbon taking on Talon Chai, which was a big spectacle, and Pejija taking on Anissa Mexen, I thought was a great matchup. And Prajanchai and Laziri, I believe, was the other one, which, again, a rematch people have wanted to see for a long time. So I just thought those 3 title fights, if you're going to do a pay-per-view card, those are 3 pretty strong title fights to put at the top of it to convince people to part with their money. Are these 3 fights as good? I don't think so. But the 2 title fights, I think, are excellent. So,
yeah, absolutely. Hey, how cool is Fat GJ?
Jesus. That I can't believe how good she is. Just to watch the progression last year from just being on a Friday Fights card and everyone being like, oh my god, this is going to be a game-changing year, and then to go on to beat Anissa Mexen, and then to beat Janet Todd earlier this year, just remarkable. And if she fights Alicia Helen Rodriguez for the Muay Thai title, I think a lot of people will be picking her in that fight as well. It's a good one, but Pejija might just take over the atomweight striking divisions already in a year of being in the promotion.
No, yeah, it's just like beating Mexen and Janet Todd back to back. She's 23 years old. She was trying to get on the Olympic boxing team at one point. Her skills are just absolutely incredible. Oh, she's only 22. She's not even 23 yet. She's only 22. Like, with her wins already, you could make the argument she is maybe on the women's all-time kickboxing list in the top 10, not number 1. But yeah, just looking forward to seeing more from Fajija. But yeah, I think she takes that Muay Thai title, no problem.
Yeah, that would be. I think if I was going to make a list of fights that I want to see the most this year, at least in striking, I think that would probably be on there. I think that would be really good. And like you said, we could see Pejija claim 2 world championships in one within about a year and a half of being in the promotion, which is absolutely crazy, because it's not like she went straight into a title fight either. She worked her way to it, won an interim title, then unified it. So yeah, crazy stuff. In terms of moving on from this card, very, very quickly, Tim, I don't know if you have anything else to do. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
I'm fine.
Okay, cool. So on the same day, there is One Fight Night 21. I will briefly, just to get your take on Regian Eersel taking on Alexis Nicholas, who's the main event of that card. We did just have Dmitry Menshikov is booked to face Ince McClinby at One Fight Night 22. So you would imagine that the winner of that maybe will be next for ESL. Like, what's your thoughts on this fight, and also just potentially ESL's remainder of the year from this point on?
Yeah, Alexis Nicholas, we only saw him in one fight in one championship, and he was very impressive for a welterweight. He beat Magomedov, and both of them were making their debut, and both were signed to one fight contracts. So it seems like what the one is doing with the Friday fights is mostly Muay Thai, 2 kickboxing, 2 MMA, and the MMA and kickboxing are one fight contracts. So this was supposed to be someone else, and I forget who that is right now. Vexport had reported it, and a few other websites had reported it. But then within one day, that person got injured. So Alexis Nicholas from France was able to fill in. Now, Alexis Nicholas is undefeated in France, and I believe he has some national titles in kickboxing and Muay Thai and stuff like that. But what we saw in that one fight is he's very good all-arounder. He's very good offensively, but he is his weaknesses lie in defensive striking, in that he will just get hit, and he's happy to get punched right in the face, and cardio. So he wants to get in brawls, he's willing to get into brawls when he shouldn't. And in the 3rd round, he begins to fade. So against someone like a beastly Regian Eersel, who can fight 5 rounds over and over and over again, this is a bit of a display fight for Regian Eersel. But if Alexis Nicholas wants to shock the world, this is the time to do it. The most eyes that will ever be on him will be on this fight. But unfortunately, it's probably Regian all day, right?
I think that was, when this fight came together, I didn't actually know about it, the other opponent, and how that fight didn't come together. So that makes that makes this fight make a lot more sense. I also think that you potentially had just some things maybe not fall into place with, obviously Liam Nolan was supposed to rematch Sinsumet last year. that didn't happen. You potentially get a #1 contender from that. Then Liam Nolan picks up a shock loss in his last fight. So again, he was one of the few guys that I think was in that title picture and could probably have put himself in position for a title shot with a win there. So things haven't fallen into place, but I didn't know about the opponent withdrawal either.
I forget who it was. It was just one day, and there was one website that reported it, and then the next day it was someone else. But yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah,
right.
Either way, like this is a Regian Eersel all day fight. And what was the other one? Dmitry Menshikov against who?
Sinsumet.
Oh, that's a good fight. That's a really good fight right there. What do you think?
Yeah, at the moment that's been like the graphic is the main event for that card. So unless that's like an interim title, I'd be surprised to see that headliner card. But I'd be surprised to see them put an interim title as well, because it's not like Eersel's not active.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that he has the 2 belts, so maybe you can make an argument there because he's defending the kickboxing belt against Nicholas, right?
Yeah, it should be kickboxing. Yeah.
So
good fight, really good fight.
It's a very good, it's a very, very good fight. I mean, if maybe the one issue, and this just happens when you have a dominant champion like Eersel, is that either fight against Eersel is kind of a tough ask. I think, Menshikov got dismantled pretty quickly against Eersel, and Sinsumet, of course, has fought him twice now, and you kind of saw the first fight was closer, and then the second one you're like, okay, it seems like if we did this another 10 times, Eersel's just going to get better each time. So they're kind of tough sells. I think maybe Menshikov is a bit more interesting because I think he's looked good since that not good fight against Eersel, so maybe you can sell that fight as he's looked a lot better, and maybe it was just his off night and something like that. But not that it's too much of a problem. Eersel is just a dominant champion, and when you have a dominant champion, it's going to be tough to make big pitches for people that are going to beat him, especially if they've already fought him and lost before. So, but
what you're almost alluding to, and what like the roundabout point is, like, does one need to invest into welterweight kickboxing or 170 pound kickboxing more and 170 pound Muay Thai more and sign like 20 good fighters, or let him go? Because like he's just going to fight the same guys over and over. There's like 5 people in the entire division. He's just going to fight the same guys over and over again, right? What do you do?
Yeah, it's tough, especially with how many title defenses he has, right? Like even if they had even if he was coming into the division now and you had all these contenders, with the amount of title defenses that he has, you would run out eventually. Like it's only natural that it's going to happen. And yeah, like you've said, do they need to bring in some new guys? Yeah, I think so. But I that kind of is a curse that you have to deal with because you have such a dominant champion, right? But yeah, that's why I was interested to get your take on this one, because it kind of feels like we're in a bit of a, I don't want to say like a limbo state, because that's maybe not fair on ESL because he is delivering, but it's just I don't think there's much out there for him that's too exciting right now in one champion, because he keeps beating everybody. So
yes,
it's his fault.
It's his fault. Yeah, what was he thinking? But yeah, like his win, Arian Sadalkovic, one of the best fights of 2022. But even the second fight against Sinsumet killed me, and I think it was that was for the inaugural Muay Thai title, and then he defended the Muay Thai title. Even that fight, you were like, there's no one else in this division. They're rematching the only 2 people in this division. I don't know what to do with this division. And there's not like a lot of people in Muay Thai in this division. And most of the people who are in this division in kickboxing are already signed to either K1 or Glory. But like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Let him go or sign 20 more guys is not really, neither of them are great options, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, One Love their double champs. Could you get Alazov moving up?
Sure. I'm sure you can tell him to move up. I don't know if he said that he wants to or not wants to, but yeah, maybe that's something. That'd be great. Sure.
Yeah. On that, let's round this out with the top 3 most anticipated or dream fights that I mentioned to you to put together, because I'm curious to get your take on this. I was chatting to Nick Atkin about this last week, maybe, about fights for the rest of the year.
How's Nick doing?
And, he's great. I should be speaking to him tomorrow on the One on SK podcast.
Killing it. Good job, man.
Thank you. And we were chatting a lot. Well, we specifically spoke a lot about Haggerty and Superlek, and just kind of dream fights for the rest of the year. So you did already mention Superbon and Alazov rematch. Of course, for that to happen, Superbon will need to beat Marek Grigorian on April 5th. But I think that, if he does, there's no way that we don't get that. And like we said previously, hopefully that happens this year because that rematch is fantastic.
Yep. Co-sign with that. Yeah, like I was saying, Shingy Zalazov versus Superbon. I would like Superbon. I think there are opportunities in that fight where Shingy Zalazov is counter kicking and he's on one leg or something like that. But I think there's more opportunities and Superbon can prepare. I'm very hopeful, but not I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's move on to the other fight. And it's the same one that you guys mentioned, Superlek versus Jonathan Haggerty. They fought several years ago when Jonathan Haggerty was still just a baby. Superlek seems to have figured out the weight cutting issues, but now I do think moving up in weight and challenging Jonathan Haggerty, amazing fight for him. What were you guys saying on that fight?
I believe they're targeting that for America. One of the two American cards later this year, I believe, is what Haggerty was told will be next. So that's interesting. I think it's a great fight, of course. I'm curious. I've seen a lot of stuff lately about Haggerty, and of course, he wants to keep hold of the belt and make as much money right now as he possibly can. And I know that he wants to do the MMA fight with Fabricio Andrade, which
I can't roll my eyes far back enough. Like, oh
yeah, from a if I was somebody in Haggerty's corner, that is definitely the one I would be pushing for. If you lose that fight, you lose no stock, and if you win that fight, incredible, right? So I get that. There's a little bit of a strange scenario right now with Nico Carrillo where he is recovered from his injury, but will he get that shot at the Muay Thai title anytime soon? Probably not. So it's a bit of a difficult scenario, and I'm surprised that Haggerty would go necessarily for this fight. I believe he really changed his tune from wanting to fight Andrade in MMA to we'll do the Superlek one next, because I think that a lot of people will pick Superlek in this fight, and that's not to say that Jonathan Haggerty isn't fantastic. He, of course, is, but we're talking about Superlek here. The big interesting point for me is that I think Haggerty has looked better as a bantamweight every time we see him. Not that necessarily Felipe Lobo was his best performance at bantamweight, but in terms of the bantamweight frame, I feel like he was able to utilize that a bit more against Lobo in terms of being, a little bit more resilient, a little bit tougher, and carrying that power, of course. So that's the interesting part for me. I think, if they were doing this at flyweight a couple of years ago, I don't think many people would debate against Superlek. But at bantamweight, Haggerty has got a bit better as a bantamweight. That makes it interesting for me. Like, how much do you weigh that in as a factor? Because a lot of people have also just said Superlek should probably be a bantamweight anyway. So whether it'll play a factor, I don't know.
No, but that is the factor, isn't it? That is the factor, is that when Jonathan Haggerty and his marquee fights against Rodtang, these guys were like 22, 23 years old at the time. Like, it was insane how young they were and how important those fights were for one championship. And both of them like built their best highlights off of those fights. But Jonathan Haggerty essentially was still just a boy. He was a young man, and he is just growing into his frame now. He's only like 25, 26. Essentially, he is just entering his prime at this moment. And in any rematch, if you have Rodtang go up, I think Haggerty beats him at this point, because I think Haggerty's gotten so much better, and he's gotten better at his frame. He wasn't knocking people out before. He was dropping them, but not finishing them like this. But he's gotten so much more tactical and so much smarter. And the thing is, like, we just want to see great champions fight. And Superlek, he is a little bit on the bigger side for his natural weight class. He seems to have figured out his weight cutting. Him going up is a major challenge, but it is someone that he's beat before. But yeah, I think the size is the factor, because if we're just talking pound for pound talent, it's got to be Superlek all day. But it is a matter of, can he handle that power? Can he handle the size? And what a story that would be. That would be so good. But Haggerty has such a target on his back. Like, everyone's talking about him. Like, Tawinshai was talking about him. Shingy Zalazov was talking about him. Like, Rodtang, Superlek, like everyone. Oh, and Fabricio Andrade was talking about him. Everyone wants to fight Haggerty, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy how fast that's all happened. I did actually previously mention Nick Atkin. He did an episode of the One Championship Sportskeeda podcast yesterday with Tristan, and Tristan obviously ended up cornering Superlek for that fight against Takeru when his team couldn't get there and stuff. And he said that the weight cut was still pretty brutal for Superlek.
Seriously.
Like last few days, and it was one of those rough moments where his hearing was going a little bit and stuff like that, and then he rehydrated, and it was like the light bulb came on, and he got all his energy back, and he was fine. So in terms of the fight, I think it went fine, but I think the build up to the weight cut, even with he's got like actual systems put in place now that is definitely helping, but it didn't sound smooth anyway. So
hey, that's bad. That's really bad.
yeah, I mean the crazy thing is Superlek is so good that you never would have guessed, right? That performance against Takeru, I would have assumed that he had a perfect weight cut based on that performance. So to hear that and for him to deliver like that is crazy. But I do that did make me question whether Haggerty pushing for this fight might also be a little bit Superlek pushing for this fight so that he can go up sooner than maybe he originally intended. But we'll see.
Let's do it, man. I'm so excited for this one. That's a good one. That's another. We gotta. Oh, come on, man. We gotta. If that fight gets booked, we're doing another show.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
100%.
I wish we were getting that one in the UK.
I know, man. Every time I have like Haggerty on or any UK fighter, they're like, I don't know how we haven't got a show in the UK. There's so many great strikers from the UK in one championship. But come on.
I don't think this a little bit of a tangent, but I believe Liam Harrison has 2 fights booked, one soon and one in America, I believe. So it kind of worries me that we're not going to get to see Liam compete in the UK in one, because if we get in a UK show, it's obviously not going to be this year. Will it be next year? I'm not even that confident on that, to be honest. But yeah, that's a little bit of a shame. What's the third pick?
Okay, so we got to follow a little bit of a timeline here, okay? But we're gonna get a little bit. We're gonna get a very conspiracy theory. So over here you got Stamp Fairtex, right? She has said that she wants to fight for a Muay Thai title. Okay, why don't we have Stamp Fairtex fight Alicia Helen Rodriguez for the Muay Thai title, and then Stamp Fairtex maybe gets revenge. Cool little timeline there, great. But then you have Fat Gija, the kickboxing champion, and you have Fat Gija and Stamp Fairtex fight for the Muay Thai title. That's it. And they fought before. They were about 14 years old, so there's not a ton that we can take from that fight. But how about Fat Gija versus Stamp?
I love it. I love it. How I don't want to the whole point of this was 3 fights that you want to see the most. I'm not here to play chattery and say no, we can't do this. However, I think that if we are going to get that fight, I believe I mentioned that to Nick on that episode about the dream fights as well, as Stamp and Pejija, I think in America for one of those American cards would be incredible. But I think the way to get there would be to do Pejija versus Alicia Helen Rodriguez first, and then have just Stamp, because as much as we're playing dream matchmakers here, I don't know if you want to risk Stamp losing to Alicia Helen Rodriguez first, and then don't get me wrong, it makes Alicia Helen Rodriguez a bigger star, and that makes the Pejija fight bigger. But if you put that on, where are you going to put it on? Probably Lumpini. Is it any bigger because of her beating Stamp? I don't know if it is. Whereas in America, if you have Pejija not unify, win both the atomweight striking titles and then go and fight Stamp, I feel like that makes more sense. But
I agree. I agree with you. So yeah, cut out the middle part of Alicia Helen Rodriguez. Just doesn't matter. Just get Stamp right over to Fat Gija in any scenario. Because yeah, you got to strike while the iron's hot, right?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It would be I'd be, if I was going to make a list of like the top 10, I think I would have Stamp versus either of them. In that list, I would love to see Stamp versus Alicia Helen Rodriguez, and if you have that fight and Stamp wins back the title, and then Pejija's there for a face off in the ring, like that's huge. But I feel like it's a big Stamp being Alicia Helen Rodriguez. I think is a little bit too much of an if to be worth risking it just to get to the Pejija fight, right?
Oh yeah, but okay, what are your 3 then?
Oh, I didn't actually make a 3.
Okay, make it right now. We got time. I'll sit here quietly while you do that.
Let me think. Superlek Haggerty is on there.
Absolutely.
Although I really want to see Haggerty and Nico Carrillo at some point, but I'm just I think that there might also be a reality in which Nico Carrillo just moves up because he knows he isn't going to get this Haggerty fight anytime soon, and he's definitely got the frame to do it. And
he's huge.
Start terrorizing that division instead.
Yeah. Hey, maybe he challenges Regian Eersel next, right? Maybe.
That would be 2, right? Because Nico's a bantamweight. That'd be a big.
Is
I
he?
don't know
Wait,
actually.
hang on.
Yeah, he's bantamweight. So I mean,
Yep,
if
you're
you
right.
put
Yep, that's insane. Sorry. Yep, you're right. I
the,
was
the, the
getting them mixed
problem
up.
the problem for Nico Carrillo is if one are like, we don't really want you to fight Jonathan Haggerty because he's doing really well at the moment, and Nico's like, okay, I'm gonna move up. They're like, so you want to fight Tao and Chai? Because
Yeah.
that's not happening either, my friend. I'm sorry to tell you, but you are not getting either of those title fights anytime soon, I don't think. So it's a tough one for Nico Carrillo. He's again a little bit like Regian Eersel, so he's a victim of his own success right now.
Yeah, but hopefully we see him back. But yeah, he's not going to fight Regan. Like that's stupid. Sorry, I said that.
That's fine. We spoke about quite a lot on the podcast about Rodtang and Takeru, whether that still is a dream fight or whether the Superlet loss has taken some of that momentum away, which I think it has a little bit. It would have been, that fight is bigger if it's Takeru's one championship debut. We haven't already seen both of them get beaten by Superlek, but that's a fight I still really want to see. Like, whilst we have the opportunity to make it, I think if you have the opportunity to make it, you have to make it. So that's still one that I really want to see, and I'd much rather see that than the other options that are probably out there for Rodtang right now, which I would imagine are him fighting on one of the US shows and probably playing the greatest hits against somebody that maybe shouldn't be in there with him.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. But no, that fight doesn't even require any it doesn't require any like side things in terms of like, is there a title on the line? Does this person have a win? Is this person blah blah? It doesn't matter. Just pair them up. It doesn't need anything else going on. Style wise, it's such a fun fight. Takeru, like we've always talked about Rodtang's motivation and questions in that right now. Is he even training? We don't really know. Takeru is broken right now. He broke his knee in that fight or broke his leg in that fight or something like that. So both of them are pretty injured at the moment, but it should just be a banger, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd maybe go with Chingazalazov moving up to challenge Regian Eersel. I think that would be a lot of fun. We did speak a lot about some MMA ones as well with Nick. So I think if I was gonna pick, if I was gonna pick one, I would put Demetrius Johnson in that mix with. I mean, honestly, anyone at this point would be great. But I think that as I was saying to Nick, that maybe DJ doesn't seem to. There isn't really anything out there that's motivating him right now. In terms of MMA, at least, of course, he's competing in jiu-jitsu and doing very, very well. The one thing he hasn't done in his career is be a 2-weight world champion. I think Demetrius Johnson versus Fabricio Andrade would be a phenomenal fight. And I think that would maybe interest DJ as a one last rodeo in MMA, just to have I was going to say to have a like satisfying curtain call and ride off into the sunset, but as people who listen to any interview with DJ ever, he's really not that bothered about the whole pomp and circumstance of it all. He'd happily just say, "Oh no, that win over Adriano Moraes last year, that was my last one. I'm good," or just never officially announce it ever, and we'll never know. So I'd
No,
like to. It won't happen.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, but I love how matter of fact he is of just like, nope, I'm not doing that. Oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. Like, yep, that's it. He's just so matter of fact. But yeah, he's never wanted to go up in weight. Even at the UFC, they were throwing money, or I don't know money, but they were throwing offers at him, and he didn't want to go up. He just wants to say like, I fight in this weight class. Even like the Mikey Musumeci fight was quite heavily rumored, and the same thing of just like, no, I'm not submission grappler. No, thank you. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if that was the thing that I said is probably most likely for him next when we did that podcast the other day. It was like on one of the American cards, Mikey got an incredible reaction.
Yeah.
At One Fight Night 10. Of course, DJ, big name there. If you're gonna do 2 shows in America, you kind of want DJ to be involved in some kind of way. I think that him, and especially now that he's just completely dedicated to jiu-jitsu and competing in the gi, I think that you could do that, and that would make the most sense. I think if we see DJ again in one championship, it will be that. That would be my pick for what we will actually see.
Yeah. So I'm going to connect 2 different dots here of like what I think happened in the negotiations with Mikey Musumeci, because that fight was almost announced at one point. But when DJ was on Joe Rogan and he talked about how you guys got the Rodtang fight set up, according to DJ, they phoned him and he said, "Yeah, mixed rules, sure. Am I getting paid the normal amount? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll do it. That's it." So his reaction to, "I'll do anything as long as I get paid my contract number." So I think they were trying to like fight Mikey Musumeci, but it's only submission grappling, so we maybe don't pay you your full contract. And he just goes, no, pay me my full contract amount, and then I'll fight Mikey Musumeci. I think that's what's going on there. But yeah, I think it's very possible that we get that fight.
Yeah, I think it would be a good one to see. I think that just about rounds up everything that I had for us to chat about. Is there anything else, Tim, on the top of your head that you want to get to before we get out of here?
No, actually, like in between all sports, it's a little bit of like an in between week from MMA to kickboxing to Muay Thai. It's just like a little bit in between. I'm looking forward to in RWS. I'm going to do a video about it. Yeah, Kunseklek versus Kumandoy, and that's a really good fight coming up. Kind of the same weekend, April 6th, I believe. But yeah, I think that's really about it, right?
Yeah, I believe so. There's not too much else on the radar, I don't think. Where do people need to be to catch your stuff? And you mentioned about doing a video on RWS. Then what have you got coming up that people can keep an eye out for?
Yes. So, on the Calf Kick Sports channel, I will be doing a breakdown of Kumandoy versus Kunseklek and why that's such an important fight in Muay Thai right now. Pound for pound implications absolutely are on the line. Kunseklek is just the impossible kid, 18 years old, blah, blah, blah. And then, but yeah, finally, Tim Wheaton MMA. Links will be down below. Instagram, Twitter, Calf Kick Sports, Instagram, all that stuff. But yeah, I think that's about it. What about you? Hey, shout out people. I'm going to share this stuff everywhere. Where can people find more Kyle?
I always just say follow me on Twitter. It's on screen because I, like yourself, I could pull out a scroll with all the things I'm doing for different places, but I post everything that I do on there, so it's easy. I will be hopefully joining Nick for the One on SK podcast on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. UK time. I believe we're doing it. Well, this episode will already be out by the time I will have done it. So I believe that's going to be a thing going forward. So tune into that. I believe it's the Sports Key to MMA Originals channel. I've got a Fighters Only piece coming out at the start of the month. I did one on Regian Eersel last month, and I have another one championship athlete that I have done a piece on. So that is coming out, well, probably around the time that these events that we have been speaking about go down. So
that's awesome. Congratulations with the Fighters Only. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's been cool. It's been cool. It was a big part of me getting into MMA was picking up a copy of Fighters Only. So yeah, it's been cool to do. It's been cool to do. All right, Tim, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for jumping on. Whenever, I'm not sure how busy your schedule is, but if we can make this a more, I'm not saying we'll do this, every week, but I won't take up that much of your time. But if we can do this, a little bit more regularly and things like that, I'm happy to do it if that's cool with you. And yeah.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.